what a half hour does. Good morning, happy Lunar New Year, everyone. Welcome to Beacon. I am Emily Bogus. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve the lead ministry team here at Beacon alongside Dr. Tuli Patel, who's walking in the door, and Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner. We want to welcome you into this sanctuary, whether you are here in person or watching us online, here in Summit, New Jersey, on the ancestral lands of the Lenni Lenape Native Americans. We see a lot of faces that we haven't seen in a long time so that we may celebrate a certain person, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Come here to honor our Minister Emerita, the Reverend Carol Haag. So good to have you here, and don't you look gorgeous? We want to welcome folks in person to join us for the dedication that's going to happen from the service. It's going to flow out from the end of the service and into the lobby. We hope that you'll stay here and for the dedication and join us for a reception afterwards. The reception is taking place in Bumba Balcony. You can see there's a theme going on. Join us afterwards, everyone, for some great coffee and croissants. And if you don't know what croissants mean, come see me afterwards. It's more about not being a donut and being a croissant. You're open to new conversations and new people. That's what croissants are all about. We hope you'll also join us at noon for our Rise Up Row rally, which is going to happen right outside on the steps on Springfield Avenue. The street will be closed off, just so everybody knows. And we hope to fill that street with voices in honor of the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, and in recommitting all of ourselves for the fight for reproductive justice and the struggle against oppression. It is so good to see you this morning. Just take a moment to look around and notice the faces. Say hello in the chat if you're here online. And we want to introduce you to a new face among us this morning. Misa, would you introduce us to our pianist?
Sure. I'm happy to introduce you to Michael Caldwell, who is our pianist for today. We go way back. And my name is Misa Iwaman. I'm the Director of Music Ministry, and my pronouns are she, her, and I can't wait to have this service happen today.
All right. Well, welcome, beloveds, here at the center where we center love and liberation as we seek radical inclusion, feeding the human spirit, and healing the world. Welcome.
Good morning, Beacon. My name is Dick Muldoon, pronouns he and his. Loretta Ross, one of the creators of the terms reproductive justice and sister song, teaches us to see how you can convince people not to believe together, but convince them to be together. So we kindle the light of our faith on this 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. A light of movement, a light of strength in diversity, a light of being truly together, moving together for a world that is still possible.
Thank you, Dick. I needed to hear those words this morning. We give voice this morning in our opening song to the emotion of anger. Yes, anger. That emotion that arises even amongst the most gentlest of folks. It arises whenever we hear the call to protect someone or something that we love, including our rights. So let us sing now, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. It's number 170 in your gray hymnals, but let me tell you, this song is easy. You're gonna pick it up very easily. Do we wanna rise in body or spirit? We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing. justice-seeking people. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. This is the humming part. Oh. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone. Be seated. You'll hear that song throughout the service. Reproductive care, including abortion, is not new. In Egypt, North Africa, the Middle East, First Peoples here in the Americas, and indigenous communities around the world in Greece and ancient Rome, we know that contraception, abortion, maternal care, and reproductive care were common practice, mostly led by women who were understood as healers in their communities. As early as the 5th century before the Common Era, however, efforts to stop the healers began. From codes of conduct and behavior defining when life began to witch hunts, controlling women's bodies is an old tactic to gain power. For poor and enslaved women, injustice and terror were exponentially magnified. For some enslaved women, abortion was an act of rebellion by denying a slave master an economic gain. Others were forced to terminate a pregnancy to avoid the rage of a slave master's wife when the rapist was her husband. And yet others bore children as an act of resistance to continue Black community.
In 1821, Connecticut became the first state to make abortion illegal. In 1859, the American Medical Association joined a large-scale federal effort to illegalize abortion because they perceived midwives as a financial threat. Even female physicians joined that effort to give it legitimacy. In 1873, the Comstock Act made it illegal to disseminate information about contraception and abortion. And at the turn of the 19th century, as white feminists argued for contraception, Black women were experimented on in the name of science. And there was a sweeping effort to force sterilize not only Black, but indigenous women. The Ho-Chunk people were forced into an agreement to exchange land for health care that created what is now known as the Indian Health Service, which has committed atrocities, including the forced sterilization of nearly 25% of Native women who utilized IHS between 1973 and 1976. In the 1960s, networks like the Association to Repeal Abortion Laws arose to coordinate abortion care. But too often these services were and are restricted to those who can pay. Jane in Chicago and clergy networks also arose to tie together women and doctors. And in 1973, in a court decision known as Roe versus Wade. Almost overnight, abortion was made legal across the United States. Anti-abortion groups rallied and organized, shifting their efforts to the states. And in 1976, the Hyde Amendment passed, making it illegal for federal funds to be used for abortions.
In 1989, facing a crisis of reproductive care. There you go. Thank goodness for Henry. Let me do that again. In 1989, facing a crisis of reproductive care of women of color, 16 Black women publish We Remember, African American Women Are for Reproductive Freedom. In 1994, Loretta Ross founds Sister Song with Luz Rodriguez and 14 others, creating the term reproductive justice to insist on a social justice frame that includes women of color. On June 24th, 2022, the Supreme Court issued their decision in Dobbs versus Jackson, women's health organization essentially overturning Roe versus Wade and eradicating the constitutional right to abortion access. Abortion today is illegal in 13 states, including all states with significant barriers. Pregnant people today are denied abortions in 26 states. Let us sing, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. We are gentle all together, and we are singing, singing for our love. We are young and old together. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Good morning. I'm Julia Curry Miller, she, hers, and I'm going to talk to you about my fight for reproductive justice over 60 years, at least the overall, what I've experienced. Some of you are young enough not to be able to even imagine what life was like in Massachusetts before birth control and abortion became legal and widely accessible. I arrived in Massachusetts 60 years ago on September 1963 from a small refinery town in Texas to begin my 4 years of study at Radcliffe, the women's college at Harvard. At that time, and despite its more progressive image today, Massachusetts was one of the last states to legalize birth control, even for married couples. In 1963, both birth control and abortion were completely outlawed in Massachusetts. In 1963, if you wanted to buy contraceptives, you had to travel to a state where their sale was allowed, if you had the money to do it. It was only in 1966, when I was 21, after the Griswold decision, that legal birth control for married couples was allowed. And later in 1972, when I was 27 and married, and only after the Eisenstadt decision from the court was published, birth control became legal for unmarried women. At the same time, abortion was still banned in the state. So women and girls also had to travel, sometimes to considerable distance at considerable expense, to receive a safe and legal abortion. Finally, in 1973, when I was 28, the Roe v. Wade decision came down, and it meant that states could no longer ban abortion in the first trimester. The trimester system was created out of whole cloth, arbitrarily, by those experts in pregnancy, the Supreme Court, for this decision. But it wasn't until 2020, when I was 75, that the Massachusetts legislators finally enacted what they called the Roe Act, that made secure the right to an abortion in Massachusetts. And today, 74% of the residents in Massachusetts approve of access to abortion, the highest in any state in the US. However, abortion rights does not mean access to abortions. We still must work very hard to break down the financial and distance barriers to receiving a safe abortion. I've advocated for reproductive freedom and justice since the late 1960s. That's my T-shirt from 1992, hanging over there with my buttons from the 2004 march in Washington. Even though major progress was made during the 60s and 70s, there always had been those folks who wanted to roll back our freedom and regulate women's right to control their own bodies. I'm now 78, and the fight continues. For decades, women and men have done all the things that you're doing today in the hopes that our children and grandchildren would not have to fight this fight. And yet, in the last several years, as Emily said, abortion rights have been severely curtailed in many states, especially in the South. Reproductive health access is inequitable and politicized. My nephew Chris's wife, Morgan Nuzzo, N-U-Z-Z-O, is a warrior for women's reproductive health. She's a registered nurse and a midwife. She recently stepped up and did an act of radically compassionate care. While the occurrence of the conditions requiring late-term abortions are rare, there are only 3 clinics in the entire United States that provide this service. Morgan's new clinic is one of them. Within the first 10 weeks of opening, they provided care for 56 women from 21 states and Canada and Europe. Morgan's work has been featured on NPR and in Time magazine, and you can find out more about her online. If you're in a position to support these efforts toward assuring reproductive freedom, I can provide Morgan's contact information and that for other entities here in New Jersey who provide things such as chaperones or travel and hotel funds. We can't allow any part of the United States to return to a time when birth control and abortion services were banned by legislators who want to force others to abide by their beliefs. My mother was a nurse at a maternal health clinic in Austin, where they had to sneak around behind the Catholic Church's back to provide information upon invitation to couples that wanted to learn about barrier control for family planning. It's a long fight. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, Beacon. My name is Mia Morse, she, her, and I'm serving as your chaplain this morning. Chaplains extend this spiritual care to this community. Our ritual of spiritual care is our community candle lighting. Together, we light candles of joy, sorrow, and gratitude. This morning, we light a candle of gratefulness to welcome our youth back that are visiting for Reverend Carol Haag. It's so good to see you both here and online. A candle of concern and sorrow for those impacted by the tornado in Selma and the flooding in California. A candle for the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, which is today, and maternal health justice, which is tomorrow. A candle of sorrow for the victims, living and dead, and their families involved in the shooting just last night in Los Angeles, killing 10 people at a Lunar New Year party. A candle of concern and sorrow for the fatal police shooting of an activist and the related protests in Atlanta that continue. And a candle of joy for our Reverend Carol Haag, as we celebrate her and all she selfishly poured into our precious children and all of our lives here at Beacon. For this and so much more, we give thanks. Please come forward and light candles here in the sanctuary or on your home altar. Thank you.
I believe in the sun, even when darkness falls. For the sun rises and the sun sets and hastens back to where it rises again. I believe in God, even when God a time for silence and a time to sing our thanks and rejoice. I believe in loving kindness, even in the midst of fear. For the God of love is my stronghold and a refuge in the days of my despair. I believe in the sun, even when darkness falls. For the sun rises and the sun sets and hastens back to where it rises again. Would you please join me in singing hymn number 20, Be Thou My Vision? Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not be all else to me save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom and thou my true word. I am with thee and thou with me, God. Thou my soul shelter, thou my high tower. Raise thou me heavenward, O power of my power. Riches I heed not, nor words empty praise. Thou my inheritance, now and always. Thou only, first in my heart. Sovereign of heaven, my treasure thou art.
Good morning. My name is Kit Stinson, and this is one of the 2 times a year when we invite people to sign up for small community groups. It's good timing. This is the time of year when many of us set intentions and make resolutions. And to be honest, if we could see the thought balloons floating over people's heads at this time of year, we might see something like this. Well, I don't really want to work out 3 times a week, but I think it would be good for me. Or, well, I don't really want to give up sugar or alcohol or caffeine or red meat, but I think it would be good for me. That's where my head was about 4 years ago. My thought balloon said, I don't think I'm right for a community group. I'm too introverted, I'm too private. You know, these were the days, if you remember the icebreaker game that many of us played at meetings, we were asked if you could have one superpower, you know, which would it be? I always said invisibility. You know, but I was conflicted. I did want to get to know more people at Beacon. I wanted to be able to walk into coffee hour and not immediately start looking around for the nearest exit. In other words, I didn't really want to join a community group, but I thought it might be good for me. Well, here we are 4 years later, and I really had no idea just how good for me being part of a community group would turn out to be, both socially and spiritually. Socially, I've made genuine and meaningful connections, and I have the opportunity to practice the kind of deep listening that we rarely remember to do in our day-to-day lives. And spiritually, the discussion material we get is so rich, it would almost be worth joining a community group just to see that. Let me take just a moment to acknowledge the people, and I hope I don't forget anybody, but the people who make the program work. Suzanne Pollock, the team leader who works with Reverend Robin, and Becky Sinden, Marianne Avery, Sarah Edvelson, Bettina Calori, and the group facilitators. And one final point, I gave a lot of thought to what I wanted to get from participating in a community group, but until I joined one, I really hadn't considered what I might be able to give. There have been times, many times, in our conversations when one person thanks another for a comment that was made, and that first person doesn't even remember having made it. It was a throwaway. But to the other person, it meant everything. It was a true gift. You never know what kind of a difference you might make in someone's day or in someone's thinking. So if you'd like to learn more about our community groups, and I hope decide to sign up, you can check out any of the January issues of Spark. It's also available on our website. I won't take the time to walk you through that, but if you can't figure it out on your own, just ask me, I'll let you know. Okay, I hope we have either piqued your interest or worn you down, and if your thought balloon is saying, I don't really want to do it, but I think it might be good for me, well, welcome. That's a great place to start. Thank you. And thank you. And now, in what is surely the least graceful transition you're going to hear today, your participation in a community group and your contribution to this morning's offering will both be gratefully received.
Let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the life I've lived speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I've lived speak for me. Let the work I've done speak for me. Let the work I've done speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the work I've done speak for me. Let the friends I've made speak for me. Let the friends I made speak for me. When I come to the end of this road and I lay down my heavy load, let the friends I made speak for me.
Morning. Morning. My name is Tuli Patel and my pronouns are she, her. In 2004, I was trained as a facilitator in Our Whole Lives, or OWL, just as Reverend Carol Haag is. And can I get a wave from people in the room who are trained facilitators? I see at least 6 of you here. Oh, more than that. And I know Marty is around somewhere. And can I get 2 waves if you had one of your children or youth go through the program? There we go, that's right. You'll have to forgive me, I get emotional and excited. So brace yourselves. OWL is the only comprehensive lifespan publicly available program of its kind in the United States. It addresses all aspects of sexuality across the ages. For 20 years and more, during Carol Haag's time here, children and youth have participated in this program. At Beacon, its precursor was known as AYS, About Your Sexuality. Despite new standards in New Jersey for sex education in 2020, leading us toward more access to comprehensive sex ed, resistors across New Jersey who are afraid that we will make their kids gay or trans, or God forbid, keep them safe when they consent to engage what can be a life-affirming act of love when respect, consent, communication, and safety are in place, resistors are winning in local school boards. From township to township, access to comprehensive sex education is being denied. And it cuts across race and class too. Black students nationwide are far more likely than white students to receive abstinence-only instruction. We need to affirm the right to bodily autonomy and make sure that Black youth have access to the information and sources necessary to ensure their health and well-being. Predominantly non-white school districts receive $23 million less in funding than white districts, and guess what's the first thing to get cut? Sex ed. As Reverend Robin shared, the Hyde Amendment has directly and intentionally infringed upon the ability of low-income, POC, young people and immigrants to access affordable abortion care, interfering with their ability to make family planning decisions that are the best for them. Here's the clincher. The United States has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, increased from 7.2 deaths per 100,000 live births in 1987 to 17.4 deaths per 100,000 live births in 2018. Somebody who's good at math, do the percentage for me. That's crazy, 7.4 to 17.4. The maternal mortality rate for Black women is 2.5 times the rate of white women and 3.5 times the rate of Hispanic women. New Jersey ranks 47th in the country for Black maternal health. Did you hear me? 47. You know how many states there are, right? The crisis for reproductive justice is right here, right now. We must mandate comprehensive sexuality education. We must partner with families. We must eliminate barriers to abortion and contraception. We must include full maternal health care, including access to midwives. Anybody use a midwife? And doulas and birthing centers and full reproductive choice in healthcare. This is our whole lives.
Would you sing with me? We are all in this together. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're all in this together. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Good morning. The first march I was ever invited to attend was an anti-abortion march. Surely you want to go, Robin, my Catholic school teacher offered. Even at 14 years old, I knew why she called on me out of all of the students in that classroom. The assumption was that an adopted child in a conservative Catholic community should vehemently oppose abortion. With the lights buzzing in the classroom, I froze in silence. What is reproductive justice? Loretta Ross asks and answers plainly: the right to have a child, the right to not have a child, the right to raise your children. Everyone should have that. It's not hard to explain, she concludes. It's just hard as hell to achieve. It's been a long road for me, from that silent 14-year-old to the pulpit here. Rabbi Joachim Prince famously said at the March on Washington, "When I was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned under those tragic circumstances was that bigotry and hatred were not the most urgent problem. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. I am breaking the silence in this generation and in myself. I was reading the other day No Choice by Becca Andrews when my 8-year-old son asked me, "Abortion means ending a pregnancy?" "Yes, that's right," I answered. "Is it still legal?" A conversation between us ensued about recent events. After hearing some of the history that we began with, he concluded, "That's a lot of work to do again." We are collectively watching the fundamental rights so many of us worked so hard for go up in flames. Audre Lorde taught us that our silence will not protect us. Our greatest problem right now, beloved, if I'm honest, is not the organized extreme right of right. It is not Donald Trump. It is our own apathy, our despair, our silences from the fatigue of this fight, our belief that if we are losing, all is lost, our conflation with winning with a reason to rise, and a strategic helplessness that serves oppression. Yes, today, the wealth gap is greater than it has ever been before. The war on black and brown bodies is in full force. Yes, today, women, transgender, and queer folks are targeted every hour, every minute. Yes, today, we are in a climate crisis threatening all of our lives. Yes, today, progressive American institutions are reeling with internal upheaval and restructuring. And yes, today, too many of us, myself included, have grown silent, even hopeless. But we've got too much work to do to be despairing. And so I'm breaking the silence. I'm speaking of a faith that teaches true life affirmation. Waking up to a faith that emboldens us with a love as devotion, not emotion, that trusts people to be able to discern what is right. No barriers, no restrictions on that kind of love in action. A faith that respects and upholds the dignity of every single person, gives each child and youth the education to stay safe and whole. A faith that has the courage to say structural racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia are death-dealing systems, and that a life-affirming faith must dismantle these systems, must reclaim and heal our collective humanity. A faith that says bodily autonomy is holy. Sexuality is beautiful. Gender identity to be cherished. And family, an evolving expression of the spark of the divine in all the ways that we are gifted to create family. That is a life-affirming faith. That is a way forward. We know that the battle on bodies and reproduction is a battle on all of our lives, all of our health care. The war on women and pregnant people is waged on all genders and all people and will not stop until we rise together. The commodification and criminalization of black and brown bodies is the imprisonment of us all. The denial of comprehensive sexuality education and bans on books are the miseducation of a country for its co-opting and control. Make no mistake. The powers and principalities seeking your silence, your numbness, your defeat, your despair, do so for the pointed and planned peril of our collective liberation. Beacon, Beacon, we have got to act on our faith. Speak on our faith. Drive people to clinics on our faith. Write legislators and call legislators on our faith. In this new year, this lunar new year, this anniversary of Roe v. Wade, let it not be a funeral of reproductive justice, but a rising up. We've got to live on faith, protest on faith, speak at the dinner table on our faith. We've got to vote on our faith, resource contraception and abortion networks on our faith, open clinics, support new doulas and birthing centers, dismantle racism in medical care, educate our children and youth, shine a light of truth. This little light, your little light, my little light, let it shine. Let it shine, beloved. Let it shine. Let it shine.
We have a wonderful musical guest, special artist, Jeff Grobe.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Help me out. This little light of mine. That's all right. That's good. I'm gonna let it shine. Stand up. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All right. I won't let anyone blow it out. I won't let anyone it out. I'm gonna let it shine. I won't let anyone it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Hey! I won't let anyone it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go. Hey, yeah. I'm gonna let it. Come on. Everywhere I go. That's right. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All around the world. All around the world. I'm gonna let it. Oh, come on. All around the world. I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world. I'm gonna let it shine. Shine. Let it shine. Let me hear you. Shine. Woo! You're done good.
Jeff Grove. Jeff Grove. Woo! Could I just ask folks in the balcony to make a little bit of space so the kids can have a seat? We tried to put them in the balcony so they could get a good view. Maybe some of you can sit by the organ as well and look down like that. Thank you so much.
And everyone can be seated. In case you're wondering, the dedication is beginning. So I'd like to welcome forward Reverend Carol Haag. Would you come forward? So you can be seated for a second, but don't get too comfortable in those chairs. So I'm hoping this is on. I'm taking this with me. So you all know, because some of you might not know our beloved Carol Haag. She is our Minister Emerita now, and a Minister Emerita of Religious Education. She served here as our Minister of Religious Education from 1990 to 1996. Well, as a DRE director, and then became the Minister of Religious Education from 1996 to 2003. And so today we gather in your honor.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Carol forward. Carol?
In June of 2022, the congregation voted and requested that the board consider naming a portion of the facilities here at Fort Waldron after Reverend Carol Haag, who's one of two ministers emeritus at Beacon. The board subsequently took action and decided to name the sunroom out there in honor of Carol, as it is a space where families of young children, hi all the young children up there, and gather to watch the service, and where our newest visitors are often welcome. This is a space of light, joy, and growth, much like Reverend Carol's ministry.
Thank you. I'm Marty Rothfelder. It's an incredible honor to speak to you about Reverend Carol Haag. And fortunately for all of you, Robin gave me a time limit. Emily already went through Carol's history here. While she was here till 2003, she achieved incredible levels of ministry here. Both during those years and subsequent, she did incredible achievements for Murray Grove Conference and Retreat Center, for Unitarian Universalism in general, for Emerita, the Liberal Religious Educators Association, and many other UU organizations, and a few non-peace organizations, especially those focused on peace. Maureen Keogh and I came to this congregation with our infant Marissa, and after visiting another UU congregation, I was skeptical of anything called religion. But once I met Carol, experienced her warmth and passion for Unitarian Universalism, I became a regular attendee, and within 6 months, Carol had me teaching in the classroom. During most of Carol's tenure, the religious education community met up the street in a roomy building with outside space and a playground. We had separate worship service there for the children and many of their parents. Jeff Grobe and many other talented musicians were regularly part of the children's service, and those services were awesome. And the classes after them were, of course, awesome as well. Being up there with Carol was always an adventure. We celebrated the Indian holiday of Holi with water. We used empty dish soap containers to squirt each other rather than with squirt guns. Also, more than once, Carol set up a slip and slide up, which is, for all those of you who don't know, it's a plastic slide with a hose water going on it for you to slide down. One year, the kids were standing around looking at it, not knowing what to do. Carol, still in her street clothes, immediately slid down the slide, smiling the whole way. I could keep telling stories, but Mia was good enough to edit them out. Carol also excelled at pastoral care, sermons, orchestrating worship services, and a multitude of other things for us. She directed an all-congregation musical, The Green Shoes, in I think it was 1994. All I can say is that this honor of naming part of our facility after Carol is well-deserved. On behalf of the congregation, I thank you for your great service to this congregation and to Unitarian Universalism.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Reverend Carol, your ministry meant that by the time I was hired in 2004, we not only had a robust program, with sound structures and practices in place, but I also inherited an RE committee beyond anybody's imagination and excellence, and some of you are still on it. I won't mention names. Carol, we rise on your shoulders. Indeed, you taught us, in the words of Sophia Lyon-Faz, that life becomes religious whenever we make it so, when some new light is seen, when some deeper appreciation is felt, when some larger outlook is gained, when some nobler purpose is formed, when some task is well done, that is when life becomes religious.
I'd like to ask now any youth alum who are here with us today to please come forward.
Alums or current youth, come.
Yep, everyone come forward. And I'm going to ask the congregation if you would rise as you're able.
We still got some coming down from the balcony.
And I'm going to ask all of our youth and youth alum present if you can place a hand on Reverend Carol. And then somehow form a chain out. Maybe Reverend Emily can help you. We often do this laying on of hands at the act of an installation or an ordination. But in this case, Reverend Carol, instead of bestowing blessings upon you in a new office or role, we are asking for your blessing. And so if you would make a chain of blessing so it can flow from hand to hand. And I think blessing can travel up across a balcony. It leaps at least 6 feet. Yeah. In honor of that slide, it'll slide on down.
For the strength of your ministry to continue to flow through us, joy, creativity, love embodied, commitment to justice, and a vision for generations ahead. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.
And so we'll now process out to our sunroom located just out of the foyer for the formal unveiling of the plaque to dedicate the room. Yes, we will bring you your kids.
sorry, over this way. Okay. Keep coming through, friends, and make your way over here. Keep coming through and kind of fill in around the circle. Fill in around the circle. Keep coming through.